Caitlin Clark has just sent a big message to the entire WNBA. Not long ago, she was considered one of the most promising young players on the planet, armed with a pinpoint shot and fearless attitude. Still, many critics shook their heads and wondered, could she survive the brutal physicality of the pros? Well, today, the league has its answer, and it's more dramatic than anyone could have imagined. Clark has transformed herself into a powerhouse, and it isn't just about toned arms or a few added pounds. She's a completely different force on the court, one who's ready to bulldoze defenders, dish out assists like never before, and maybe even change the very standards of what a WNBA guard can be. You might be asking yourself, what exactly happened here? How did a rising star who initially struggled to hold her ground in the paint suddenly become an unstoppable force? Why are experts now whispering that she could be the next MVP, and sooner rather than later? Stick around, because this story goes beyond weight training and raw talent. What Caitlin Clark is doing has the potential to shift the entire landscape of women's basketball. In her college days, Caitlin Clark looked like she was on a fast track to superstardom. She lit up the scoreboard with jaw-dropping shooting performances and explosive drives to the rim. But everyone knows that the WNBA is a whole different ballgame. As soon as she suited up for her rookie season, the intense physicality of the league hit her like a freight train. Gone were the days of breezing past defenders who simply couldn't handle her speed. Now, she had to contend with seasoned veterans who lived for pushing promising upstarts around. Suddenly, the unstoppable college sensation found herself getting bumped, shoved, and even pinned to the sidelines by stronger, more experienced defenders. Critics started whispering that Clark might be just another star from the NCAA ranks who would flame out once real physicality set in. Her slender frame became an instant target. Opposing teams realized that forcing her into the paint or dragging her through multiple screens was the easiest way to slow her down. Still, Clark never seemed mentally rattled. There were glimpses of brilliance, those signature long-range bombs, the no-look passes, the fearless drives. Yet every highlight reel play was often followed by a moment where a more imposing defender put her on the floor. While she chalked it up to growing pains, the question lingered. Could she ever become as physically dominant as she was skilled? As that first season went on, her coaches and fans noticed something. Clark wasn't backing down from the challenge. She seemed determined not only to survive those bruising matchups, but to conquer them. By the end of her rookie year, her approach was crystal clear. The question wasn't if she was going to address her size and strength concerns, but how fast she could do it. And that sets the stage for everything that happened next. But here's the thing. If you assumed Clark would settle for incremental improvements, you haven't been paying attention. What she pulled off in the offseason is bigger than a simple weight room plan or a few add-on muscle pounds. It's the foundation for a terrifying new presence, one that made her unrecognizable to some of her own teammates when training camp began. Once her rookie season wrapped up, Caitlin Clark wasted no time. She dove into a grueling off-season regimen that left even some of her coaches shaking their heads in disbelief. According to insiders, she wasn't just doing the usual conditioning and shooting drills. She was lifting weights hard, focusing on core stability, explosiveness, and upper body strength in ways most guards don't attempt until much later in their careers. Stephanie White, a notable figure in the league and someone who's watched Clark's journey closely, confirmed that Clark's bulk up was real. We're not talking about a subtle difference, a couple of pounds of lean muscle that fans might only notice if they squinted. We're talking about an athlete who added enough muscle to shift her entire playing style. For a while, fans on social media speculated that the rumors might be exaggerated. It's not uncommon for off-season stories to hype up a player's improvements, but as soon as people laid eyes on Clark during preseason training, the reaction was immediate. She looks bigger, her arms had definition no one had seen before, her shoulders looked broader, and there was a new sturdiness to how she moved on the court. The most remarkable part of Clark's off-season routine is that it wasn't just about aesthetic changes. She specifically targeted the areas of her game where she was most vulnerable, especially when absorbing contact in the paint. She drilled the art of using her shoulders to create separation, tested new footwork patterns for post-up situations, and hammered through endless sets of core exercises to maintain balance under physical duress. The result? A version of Caitlin Clark who's no longer timid about driving into a crowd of defenders. Opponents could once simply bump her off the path to the hoop, but now she's the one initiating contact and setting the terms of the engagement. If you ask her coaches, they'll tell you that her transformation goes beyond muscles. It's mental. She knows she can handle the punishment, and that knowledge is worth its weight in gold. At this point, the WNBA was already buzzing, but nobody knew how big of a ripple effect Clark's new physique would create once the games actually started. The real question became, would all this newfound strength translate to on-court dominance, or would it be another hype train that fizzles under the bright lights? It didn't take long for the league to get its answer. From the moment the ball tipped in Clark's first few games of the new season, she set a different tone. Instead of dancing around defenders, she went straight at them. You could practically see the shock on their faces when they realized the usual shoves and arm bars that used to knock her off course were no longer working. Overnight, Clark's drives to the rim looked more explosive. She could take a bump from a robust forward, maintain her dribble, and still finish strong at the basket. The classic rookie hesitation seemed to vanish. She discovered that she no longer needed to rely on her high-arcing floaters to avoid contact. She could go up, take the hit, and lay it in without losing her balance. Even more astounding was her emerging post-up game. Picture this: a guard who can scorch you from 30 feet out, suddenly backing you down in the paint like a power forward. Clark began using her lower body to seal off defenders, then employing surprisingly nimble footwork to spin or pivot toward the rim. It was a skill set rarely seen from a player with her shooting range. If a smaller guard got switched onto her, Clark immediately identified the mismatch and went to work. Fans and analysts alike were shocked. After all, the biggest knock on Clark was that she was too skinny to muscle her way into the paint. Well, that narrative went out the window faster than an outlet pass. She transformed from a perimeter threat to a matchup nightmare. Guard her tight on the outside, and she'll break you down off the dribble or bully you on the block. Stay in the paint, and she'll step back and bury a three in your face. Yet, for all the hype swirling around her new offensive approach, Clark's physical upgrade did something else many didn't expect. It began transforming her passing game in ways that might be even more impressive. But that's not all. Her rising confidence in physical battles gave her an edge on the defensive side, too, something no one predicted when this strength-building process started. Caitlin Clark has always been a gifted passer. Even in college, she frequently dazzled crowds with behind-the-back dimes and pinpoint bounce passes in transition. The issue she faced in the WNBA was holding onto the ball under heavy pressure. Larger, stronger defenders would hound her until she coughed up the ball or made a rushed decision. But now, thanks to her improved physicality, she can hold off defenders much longer. Imagine Clark dribbling near the top of the key with a robust forward pressing against her side. Last year, that scenario might have resulted in a loose ball or a forced pass. This season, she's calmly absorbing the contact, maintaining her dribble, and waiting that extra split second for a cutter to slash to the basket. The difference may look subtle at first glance, but it's everything. That extra second of composure is enough to transform what might have been a near turnover into an easy assist. Suddenly, you see passes from Clark you didn't notice before. Threaded needles through tight double teams, swift kickouts to the corner three, or bullet passes inside after driving deep into the lane. Experts are already saying that she's on pace to put up some of the highest assist averages we've seen in years. One analyst even speculated that Clark might be the first player to average a double-double in points and assists on a consistent basis if her upward trajectory holds. This expanded arsenal isn't just fueling her confidence, it's striking fear into opponents. You can't sag off to prevent her from driving because she'll knock down a three. You can't body her up to limit her shooting because she'll pivot into the paint and punish you. And if you send help defenders, she'll find the open teammate for an easy basket. That's the hallmark of a genuinely elite player. There's no simple blueprint for stopping them. On top of all that, she's got an improved mid-range game. While most players in today's league are content to either drive to the rim or launch from beyond the arc, Clark is adding yet another layer, pulling up from 12 or 15 feet and converting those in-between shots that can kill a defense's rhythm. And let's not forget that her dedication in the weight room might have the biggest impact. on the other end of the floor. Because for all the chatter about her being unstoppable offensively, Clark's evolving defense is a major reason so many coaches are losing sleep right now. If you thought Caitlin Clark's transformation only mattered to her own team, think again. Word travels fast in professional sports, and her reinvention has sent shockwaves throughout the WNBA. Opposing coaches are already fine-tuning game plans, trying to figure out how to contain a player who can now beat you in the paint, from the perimeter and on defense. Some teams have begun rotating bigger, stronger forwards onto her in hopes of shutting down her drives. Others are attempting to stay small and quick, hoping that relentless pressure might still disrupt her timing. But it's not just about matchups. The real ripple effect is seen in how other guards are reacting. Some are reportedly ramping up their off-season strength and conditioning routines, realizing that Clark is setting a new standard for what a guard must do physically to remain competitive at the highest level. It's becoming clear that if you don't match her physical development, you risk getting left behind, or worse, embarrassed. Imagine being a 10-year veteran who prides herself on out-muscling rookies. And suddenly, this second-year pro comes barreling down the lane and plows right through you. It's more than just a wake-up call, it's a tipping point for the entire league, forcing players to evolve their training methods or risk losing ground to the next generation. Fans, of course, are eating this up. Social media is buzzing with highlight clips, workout videos, and side-by-side comparisons showing a scrawny rookie Clark next to the built, confident version we see today. Every tweet or post about Clark's transformation accumulates massive engagement, and the hype is bleeding into mainstream sports media as well. More cameras, more interviews, more pressure. A perfect storm that can either catapult her into superstardom or weigh down anyone not mentally prepared. But if there's one thing we know about Clark, it's that she thrives when the stakes are high. For the WNBA itself, this couldn't come at a better time. Having a young star who's both electrifying to watch and dedicated to long-term growth brings new eyes to the sport. The next question on everyone's mind is straightforward: how far can she really take this? And that's where we move into the heart of the conversation: Caitlin Clark's future and the unprecedented heights she might reach. Caitlin Clark is only in her second season, yet the words MVP and championship contender are already swirling around her name. That's borderline unprecedented for someone so early in their career, especially in a league as competitive as the WNBA. Usually, young players need a few seasons to acclimate, understand the nuances of professional-level defenses, and build the necessary stamina for a grueling schedule. Clark seems to be accelerating that timeline at warp speed. Some analysts predict that, given her rate of improvement, she could become one of the most accomplished players in WNBA history if she stays healthy and continues to refine her skills. That's no small statement in a league that has seen titans like Diana Taurasi, Maya Moore, and Candace Parker. Yet Clark's trajectory points to something unusual: a balanced fusion of unstoppable scoring, elite playmaking, and surprising resilience on defense. Let's not overlook the psychological aspect. Superstars aren't just measured by stats. They're measured by how they handle expectations, pressure, and the target that forms on their back once they're recognized as a primary threat. So far, Clark has embraced the scrutiny. She sets ambitious goals, internalizes any criticism, and uses it as fuel to push her game even higher. That mental toughness might be her biggest weapon yet. Of course, as with any star, there are critics. Some claim she's benefiting from the hype machine, that it's too soon to crown her the future face of the league. Others point out that adding muscle mass doesn't automatically guarantee longevity or championships. There's a lot more to success than just being physically stronger. Still, when you watch her on the court, it's hard to deny the sense that we're witnessing the birth of a new era. And it's not just the WNBA that's feeling the shift. Up-and-coming collegiate players, even high school prospects, now see Clark as a benchmark. They realize that to excel at the next level, they'll need more than skill and hustle. They'll need a level of physical conditioning once reserved for traditional post players. In many ways, Clark is rewriting the blueprint for the modern guard, and young hopefuls are taking notes. What will Clark look like in 3 or 4 years? If she continues at this pace, we might see her passing the milestones of legendary guards and forging new records that stand for decades. We might also see her leading her team to multiple playoff berths or even titles. The scariest scenario for everyone else? A Caitlin Clark who refines her shot even more, becomes an elite on-ball defender, and remains the focal point of offensive schemes. That's the type of player who changes the arc of a franchise, and maybe even the league's history. What do you think? Is Caitlin Clark on track to become one of the all-time greats, or does she still have hurdles to clear? Join the conversation and let your voice be heard. After all, the story's just heating up, and something tells me the best chapters are yet to come. Thanks for watching. See you soon.